So today, a vision for what could be for our city. That's what we're going to talk about. And a strategy. We should begin with the end in mind. If that's the vision we want, what are we going to do? So we're going to talk about those things and work a little bit as a group planning that out. The other groups have done that. We've come up with some, really, I think, some fabulous stuff that helps us all. That really just gives us a heart and something to pray for. And then personal action too. A PDS kid, Cameron, and he wrote a speech in the 6th grade about Navy athletes. And he had a vision for that. And he wrote, and he's now, by the way, I'll tell you what he is after I say it. But he wrote the greatest place to be an athlete, because you have to be a student, you have to learn to be an officer in the military, protect our country, and then athletics is third in those things. And how that's kind of the pinnacle. Fast forward 15 years, I guess. Well, no, I guess he was 10. Fast forward 12 years. He's the captain of the football team. He's the president of senior class of Navy. And so he had it on his heart, and I think that's what we're doing for Memphis today. We're not trying to fix it completely, but we want to put it on our heart what it could be, what it is like, why it's aspirational, why we would do these things. But then, and Mark Fruitt is going back trying to get us the detail, like how much did he stay committed and how did he get it on his heart. But he even wanted to be president of the senior class and lead. But he has God all along. The testimony is strong. We're going to put it in the recap, so you'll get it on Saturday. But his friend wanted to be the president of the class, and so he backed down. His mom said, "Well, just wait and see what God does." So the friend wins president. He signs up for vice president. Friend gets in trouble, can't be president. He's president. So God said, "Be patient, be humble, and see what God does." And if you're then just be vice president. So, but having that heart. Knowing that, getting things on your mind. But if you've been in a kayak trying to get back to the beach, you can't really look at the water. You've got to pick a spot, and you got to go toward that spot. And we're going to that spot on the beach, and that'll be fine. Whether you've ever been there before or not, you got to kind of pick the spot, and that's important. So, but we looked down and we said, today is difficult. Today is troublesome, and to not stay focused on where we're headed can be trouble. But we're headed somewhere big, right? The only thing that Helen Keller says this, the only thing worse than being blind is having sight. That's the literal, right? And not having vision. Not having a vision. And again, we use it all day long from practical ways. So what this client meeting might go like, to all the way to signing up for a vision. But God gives us a big one. He gave John this one. On the island of Patmos as he was exiled. And who would like to read this verse boldly for us?
I'll read it.
Okay, thank you.
Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them."
But look at all the I saws. I saw a new heaven and new earth. They're merged. It goes on to those two things coming together. Imagine heaven and earth becoming one. I saw a holy city, a new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven. And even look, I love this last saw. And I heard, who hears something in their vision? You hear a peaceful house, and you're going to see work toward that. You hear a voice. Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. And it goes on. We wipe away every tear. No more pain, no more suffering, no more death. God's doing everything, no matter what the troubles or the waters we're in, or the mini vision we have for our child. This is our ultimate vision. This is what God is doing. When we're his, this is what we look forward to the most. This is our number one vision. I can't wait to be with God. And sometimes we say that on a tough day. And sometimes on the best day, we want to say, wow, what's he doing? I can't wait to be with God. There's a testimony of somebody this morning. I said, the more I focused on God, the more the rest of my life, and what he was doing, the more the rest of my life took order. I had more joy with my kids. I had more joy with my spouse. I had more joy in my job because I saw it where I was headed and I knew it. other parts of vision. In Colossians. Somebody, you want to read this one, Matthew?
Since then you have been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. For you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory.
Okay. Set your mind on things above. So we won't be able to forget Robert easily doing that, and in the third step, figuring out to look up. That was good, and we know that about the beachhead, and we know that. But look up, things above, not on earthly things. When I'm thinking about something that's temporary, I'm in trouble. And no verse really says it better than this. Therefore, we do not lose heart. Although we're outwardly wasting away, yet inwardly we're being renewed. We're getting closer to God. We're getting transformed from one degree of glory to another to be like Jesus as you focus on. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. This is the key. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. What is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. We had the early Wednesday morning group came in talking about a big basketball game between 7th graders. That's the pinnacle of basketball, if you didn't know. And one of them had dominated the other one. Well, those boys, in this case, the 7th that lost, you can see the scoreboard, that's really temporary. In fact, they turn it off right afterwards. And basketball itself, it's temporary here. And even the guys who felt great, either way we can get caught up on what's seen and they go, oh, I'm a fabulous basketball player, and lose what's really eternal. The things that last are God, His Word, and the souls of men. So Matthew just beat me in basketball. What I care about is what I can't see. How's his soul? That's what I care about. What's he doing? What's God doing? We talked last week about FedEx and the pandemic and was headed down. But what's God doing? Now it's headed up because of the pandemic, because of the shipping of virus and PPE and all the medical things needed. What's God doing in these temporary things that we're noticing? The stuff we see is temporary. And I think it's the stuff we see is eternal. And our percentage of thought on seen versus unseen is probably what?
Not great.
That's bad. Yeah. So, and again, we're taking in, Matthew asked a really good literal question. We're taking in stuff all day. When you're driving down Poplar, you've got to take in some of these temporary things or you're going to crash. So we're not saying don't use your eyes, don't use what your head. But here's what it says. We fix our eyes. I mean, that's the pure focus on what is unseen. Knowing what God did, knowing what God is doing. The most important thing to have our eyes on, and that's the vision that comes from our hearts, is what's unseen. So, you want to read this one?
Sure. In the last days, God says, I will pour out my Spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy, your young men will see visions, your old men will dream dreams.
This is Peter, the day of Pentecost, recalling the prophet Joel, recalling a prophecy, using a prophecy, and saying, we're going to have even more. In these last days, don't you love that? Your sons and daughters will prophesy, that your young men will see visions, old men will dream dreams. And as dreamers, that can be used negative. They're just a bunch of young folks that hadn't been through life. They're saying, old men are still going to dream dreams about how things are going to be. Martin Luther King, I have a dream. You know, that part's coming true. But we have dreams. And again, that's not a dream to have your child go to college, have a dream to somebody to focus on a sport and get better at. That's a warm-up dream. That's a warm-up knowing how to use those things. And those things are good. But to know that God has this vision for us, and what he's talking about here is a spiritual vision of where we're headed and what the earth could be like when it's new, it's important. It's perfect communion with God. We couldn't think about that too much. He calls us in the Lord's Prayer that, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. to want that to happen faster should be one of the desires on our heart. And that may be one thing you do. We're going to add things to do, but how about studying heaven? How about studying what it's going to be like with your spouse after Christmas? Like a book on heaven, what things are going to be like. And at the end of the day, it's a lot we don't know, but what is in the Bible, what is the promise, and to have a vision for it is so unbelievable that it says no mind can conceive, ear heard, eye seen, our eyes never seen something this great. And we think up of a lot of good stuff, but it's going to be even better. So to dream these dreams about where we're headed, that's what he wants us to do. And it ties right with our Jeremiah verse from last week on seeking the peace of the city. What would this city look like? It's going to be made new one day, so I don't have to stress out too much. But what it would be like if we sought the peace of the city and brought this prosperity now as kingdom agents, especially since we're taken care of, especially since I don't need anything else on this earth because I'm headed to this glory that mathematically outweighs in time, in space, in everything, in glory than anything I've ever experienced. And instead of trading off some of this temporary glory or this temporary time for eternal glory. Okay. And everybody thinks this way, right? Even business people think this way. If you're working on something exciting that you really care about, you don't have to be pushed. The vision pulls you. Maybe who finds that true? If you like it, you go do it. It's not work. Found that when we found our spouses, we covered that already. You know, your friends were saying, "Oh, you're changing. All your priorities are different." And you're like, "Yeah," but you hadn't even thought about it. You hadn't thought about my priorities. No, I've got this person I love. I'm going to have a relationship, and it's going great. And you guys are great, but you're not that great. You've got a new love, a new vision. It wasn't work to not do some of the things you did. Move into the hope that it's going to be done, and therefore, why don't I want to be part of what he's doing? We know it's his command to seek the peace and prosperity of our city. We know it's his heart to see the city prosper and have peace, and which real peace is knowing the gospel. But we do that in word and deed, and Jesus healed people of their diseases, and then he said, which is in their lameness, literally, which is harder to get up, take your mat, which is hard to do, get up, take your mat, and walk, or forgive sin. So I can take those things together at whatever place you think.